And we're looking at the last 8 hours and 45 minutes of the sun here. Very large plasma filament rising in the northeast, as well as one setting in the northwest. Otherwise, pretty low levels of solar activity, no sunspots. And let's look at the southern region. And there are your time and date stamps, folks. And let's look at 171 angstroms also. There's a region we just were. And we'll just scroll up and look at that filament in 171 angstroms also. Doesn't look like any of it has really released yet or anything, folks. That's something to keep an eye on. Now, when I say ion, the pun is indeed intentional. Let's look at it on HelioViewer real quick, so I can show you the 304 versus 171 angstroms breakdown. There's the view in 171 angstroms. You can see the filament is rooted right around here. And there's the view in 304 angstroms, faded in. So some big filaments to watch throughout the day today. And let's look at more data like the X-ray flux, which is quite flatlined. 10.7 centimeter radial flux for your new viewers is a proxy for sunspot number. It follows sunspot number quite precisely. Back up to 72, having dipped down to 71 for a short period in the past couple of days. And the KP index holding steady at 1 over the past 18 hours. Let's look at cosmic rays real quick. Here's the Apatity neutron monitor, as well as Barentsburg. And there's the data from those two sources. And next we'll look at the Athens neutron monitor. There's the data from that. Over the past 30 days, quite flat there. Next we've got Mexico City. Pretty flat over 30 days at Mexico City as well. We are pleased to see that Moscow is back to returning data. There's the Moscow neutron monitor, and we typically do see this with more wild variations. And finally, we'll look at Oulu, Finland, and DOMC, Antarctica. There's Oulu. Nothing super exciting happening there. And there is DOMC, Antarctica. And we always link to the Network of Cosmic Rays Stations page. If you want to monitor them yourself, feel free, don't take our word for it. Next, looking at the real-time solar wind, we see a phi angle of around 120 degrees and rising. Solar wind density, 5.19 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed, 326 kilometers a second as we've returned back to solar minimum conditions. There's the data from ACE. Looking corroborative as it typically does. Relativistic electrons are still in a moderate range, and the GOES electron flux remains cratered as forecasted. This is going to come back up in the next 24 to 48 hours a little bit. And let's look at the ionosphere next. Now, we were considering talking about the Schumann resonances, which I like to refer to as the Schumann irrelevances. Now, Schumann resonances are some secondary harmonic radio frequencies in between the ionosphere and the surface of the planet. They are canceled out entirely in the daytime by the sun. However, in the non-daytime, these radio frequencies bounce back and forth and create harmonics on each other, just like the same way harmonics are created on a guitar string, if you're familiar with guitar harmonics. And perhaps we'll do an entire video about the Schumann resonances sometime. I am not convinced that it has any predictive value, or is of much use at all, besides as a novelty. Anyway, there's the F2 layer. Let's bring up the latest image. And we're seeing some slight anomalies there in the southern hemisphere, but looking a little more normal than it has. There's the GOES magnetometer, as we are currently in the South Pole-oriented portion of the heliospheric current sheet. We're seeing a little higher readings here overall on the GOES magnetometers. No surprise there, as the South Pole is a little stronger than the North Pole right now. Here's the Gong 2 data. And no, the planets are not affecting the sun's magnetism, as this magnetic flux region out here is rotating around as it does. It has nothing to do with where the planets are located. And in any case, this data is 8 hours and 59 minutes old. So not very good data here, although we expect to remain solidly in the South Pole-oriented portion of the current sheet for an extended period, at least 2 to 3 days. Keep in mind, magnetic environments can change with absolutely no warning. Now, we see some serious anomalies here in the Magnetosphere movies, and we see a very dense plasma space around the planet right now. There's very high magnetohydrodynamic density there. We're talking about protons per cubic centimeter. And you can see all those dark blue areas around the planet. Those are high density regions, and they're quite offset and quite odd. Never saw that kind of formation before. Here's the pressure. And while the pressure isn't very high, we see multiple double layers forming in there, an indication that there's not just 1 or 2 Van Allen belts. There are probably like 6 Van Allen belts. And we're not going to get super into it now, as we're just doing all of the space weather all at once. Anyway, here's the geospace delta B, in other words, changes in the Earth's B field on the ground level, coming a little closer to home, as we watch the 2 North Poles, one over Siberia, which is slightly stronger, one over Canada, which is weaker, and one in Antarctica creeping into the southern Indian Ocean. Small seismic uptick over the past 24, as we saw a big lull in seismic activity yesterday. Let's scroll up the list and see what's going on today. Here is a deep quake at Alaska. It's only a 3.1 magnitude. And one of the larger quakes of the past 24 is this 5.5 at Ascension Island, a French island off the coast of West Africa. There's a quake in the North Mid-Atlantic Ridge, as we've been seeing quakes there regularly. Here's a deep quake at Chile, as we've been seeing repeated deep earthquakes in Western South America. And really, there still is a 7 magnitude earthquake drought, folks. If you're in a prone area, please have a disaster plan, have a bug-out bag, and try to be an asset, not a liability, when the you-know-what hits the fan. Puerto Rico getting struck with aftershock after aftershock. Peter Schiff didn't say anything about it. His fortress down there in Puerto Rico is probably doing just fine. And just scrolling up the list here, folks. Bear with me up one quick moment. There's another deep quake at the Philippines, as we see an increase in seismic and volcanic activity there. And another deep quake at the Philippines, pretty close by. Heads up Philippines for a larger quake at the surface, as well as Western South America. Let's continue on to look at the windy.com pressure maps. We're going to let that play through about 24 hours. We're going to be getting some snow here in Pennsylvania tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it, as I love the extremes of weather. Anyway, there's the GFS pressure model. We'll let that advance until about 12 Zulu tomorrow. If you're wondering what time it is when we made the video, it's 4:11. And let's see what volcanoes are erupting. Mount Aso is on the list once again. Flight level 7,000 there. Sakurajima exploded. Flight level 6,000 there. Taal volcano in the Philippines, still erupting. Let's hope that one doesn't cause untold damage, as there's lots of population very nearby. Mount Dacono, flight level 7,000 there. Popocatépetl has dispersed its ash. Revenador exploding. flight level 17,000 there, and Sabancaya exploding. Please do not attempt to pole vault Sabancaya. It's producing a 25,000-foot ash plume. And going to lightningmaps.org, looking at where the lightning is striking. It's looking pretty calm from my perspective. Here's the nullschool.net jet streams of the western world. It looks like a significant anticyclone there over Alaska. See that clockwise rotation up there. And yeah, meridional jet stream flow. We've got a doubled up jet stream here over the North Atlantic. And let's look at the eastern world real quick. Let that animate. And there are the eastern jets. Here's a value-added service for you. It's the U.S. Doppler radar map. Already snowing in Pennsylvania, and again, we are going to get hit. Last I heard, the forecast was 2 to 4 inches for the Lehigh Valley. In fact, it could already be snowing. I like every bit of it, folks. I like days that are 100 degrees and days with a high temperature of 5 degrees. And I can operate just fine in both of those environments. Anyway, there's the water vapor map as an atmospheric river is headed our way. And currently the headwaters of that are over Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. The jet stream will pull them down and deposit a lot of moisture in the form of snow. And then rain tomorrow night. Let's look at this convergence zone over southern Utah. For all of you weather pornographers, all you folks who are understanding that chemtrails has nothing to do with the weather patterns and neither does CO2. Check out the convergence zone, folks. Jeez. Some violent activity there. If you're flying across the country, across those regions, expect some turbulence. Respect existence or expect resistance. By the way, if you enjoy the content, please press like and subscribe on YouTube. We're creating more and more content that is not just daily space weather, such as our cosmology segments. Hundreds and hundreds of videos about space weather. So again, if you enjoy the content, please press like and subscribe on YouTube. And speaking of cosmology segments, we're putting it all in one video today. Let's see what's going on above my head. Looks like Mars just rose. Out there in the constellation Ophiuchus. And here's where planets are in the solar system. There's where they'll be in 1 week, approaching another new moon, as Venus makes its way around to our lonely side of the sun, as all the planets are on the other side. Let's talk about V473 Lyrae. It is a Cepheid variable. It appears to have a companion of a low mass. If you want to read all about V473 Lyrae, well, I guess I'll scroll. I'll just scroll and then you can read. Or you could click the links below the video and have a look that way. If you want to read more about V473 Lyrae, we've left links to this article on Universe Guide. Have yourself a read if you want to know all about V473 Lyrae. Let's talk about a ridiculous article. Well, maybe not ridiculous, but some folks from, is it Yale? Some folks from Yale, I believe it is, have done some studies comparing global temperature change and so on. And I just want to note one thing, a lack of understanding of volcanic inputs. The K-PG extinction was a mass extinction and profoundly altered the global carbon cycle. Our results show these changes would allow the oceans to absorb enormous amounts of CO2 on long timescales, perhaps hiding the warming effects of volcanism in the aftermath of the event. That's right, folks. These people are getting paid probably 6 figures to study geophysics, and they think that volcanism has warming effects. Tisk tisk. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I assume it's because volcanoes emit CO2, and these folk over at, I could have sworn it was Yale. I don't know. I don't really care. Anyway, suggesting in the study that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs, not volcanoes. And we've moved on to the that is an ass and that is a hole in the ground. Just a little aside here. Are you worried about robots taking over the world? Let me just talk about that for a quick moment. When the printing press was invented, it did things like put scribes out of business, as they didn't have a job anymore writing Bibles, for instance. People would spend their whole lives handwriting a Bible or two, and that would be their entire life's work. Do you think the printing press should not have been invented so that humans could continue to have jobs? Because this idea that, oh no, the robots are going to steal our jobs is complete stupidity and ignorance. You want robots to steal your jobs because that will enable humans to do other things that are relevant to their lives. So it is not a concern whatsoever when the automobile is invented, even though it puts carriage makers who make horse and buggies out of business, because it allows mankind to evolve and do more better things. Robotization is a good thing, not a bad thing. And if you're wondering if I think it's a case for government-provided income, the answer is not really, as competition seems to drive the evolution of mankind. Look at the Soviet Union. Were they inventing anything in the Soviet Union, folks? The answer is no. Let's talk about norovirus at Yosemite. Nearly 200 visitors seem to have come sick, and there's at least 2 confirmed cases of norovirus, which is an extremely transmissible disease. You can get it just from touching a surface or eating tainted food, obviously, and so on. 200 visitors sick after outbreak. Officials are trying to sterilize the park. So if you're headed to Yosemite today, perhaps be careful. Let's talk about the Cringeophile mile, where you run, you cringe, and then you lull and cringe again. I know, it doesn't make sense, does it? Well, let's just explain where I'm coming from here. It's Cringeophile mile. You run, you slide, hit the bump, take a dive. When it comes to U.S. politics, you run, you cringe, and then you lull and cringe again. It's Cringeophile mile. Now, I'm a huge Cringeophile, and I loved this scene when Liz had a hot mic along with Bernie, and she came up to Bernie at the commercial break and said, I'm going to get me a beer, and I think you just called me a liar on national television. And Bernie said, what? And Liz said, you just called me a liar on national television. And Bernie said, let's don't do this right now. We could talk about this later. But you actually called me a liar. And meanwhile, Tom Steyer stood in the background like a doting schoolboy, trying to say hi to Bernie. Wow. Hey, Tom, you realize that you're running against Bernie in the primary, you fanboy? Tom Steyer. Another billionaire. Maybe he can get Oprah as his running mate so the vice president and the president can be billionaires. I wonder how much Bernie likes Tom Steyer, as Bernie seems to be down on billionaires. Although he's softened up on millionaires as he is one. Bernie Sanders, a member of the 1%. Let's go a little farther from home, back to space at Galaxy Zoo. That's Zooniverse.org, Galaxy Zoo Project. Now, Zooniverse.org is the largest citizen science project in the world, and we need humans to classify distant galaxies. Computers are unable to do it, so let's just show you what it entails. We're going to say smooth. We're going to say in between, completely round and cigar-shaped, as we're viewing it from a composite angle here. We're not seeing it edge on or radially. The ecliptic plane, that is. Is it merging or disturbed? I don't think so. So set yourself up a login here at zooniverse.org. Perhaps get published in a scientific paper. It happened last year. Does it have any rare features? I don't see any rare features, as I believe this stuff is in the foreground. So I'm just going to say nothing unusual. And there you go. It's a galaxy classified. Will you be the citizen scientist to classify that galaxy? Zooniverse.org. By the way, viewers, please consider becoming a patron and supporting our organization as we are in a massive growth stage this year in 2020. I am in the process of quitting my job. So help me do that by supporting the channel via Patreon and by sharing the videos on your social media with your local science nerd, astronomy club, or whatever it might be. Let's talk about the mission. Well, the mission is to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects. All your weather comes from space, folks. Welcome to space. All your weather comes from space. Carbon dioxide does not control the climate. Another mission is to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, hence these videos, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, such as growing tomatoes indoors over the winter, which we are doing once again this year, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including but not limited to sciences such as spectroscopy, chemistry, astrophysics, health, wellness, longevity, cosmology, biology, magnetohydrodynamics, geology, etc. Also to assist the humans by advancing the study of predictive phenomenon to optimize value and reduce risk and liability and save lives and adapt no matter what the adversity is. And last but not least, to do real science and to not be ossified in our beliefs, as being ossified in your beliefs is not real science. And let's treat those who are ossified with love, respect, and inclusion to this scientific discussion, as sometimes it takes a long time for the brilliant minds of science to catch up with the new data. How about some words of wisdom from our official coffee sponsor, Terry? By the way, thanks, Terry. I think the coffee arrived yesterday. We'll see if Becky sends me an email today. I'll be heading to the shop probably tomorrow before the snow hits. The greatest tribute you can pay to someone who has passed due to illness and disease is to take care of your own health. Do the research outside the box of profit-driven mainstream medicine such as doctors, hospitals, and pharmaceuticals. That's right. And thanks, Smash Team. Stay tuned for the bonus features. And again, please press like and subscribe on YouTube, as we're still at 1.46 thousand subscribers. Check out the new images of Jupiter that have been stitched together by some Germans, I think. Anyway, this article on Universe Today, you can see all about it there. Shout out to Gerald Eichstadt and Sean Duran, as they've stitched together some fantastic images of Jupiter. You can do this yourself, by the way. You can head to the website and put raw images together, such as this one, and make some desktops, folks. All the links are in this article at Universe Today, and we've linked the Universe Today article below the video, as we always do. Let's talk about one more article here on SciTech Daily. Hubble Space Telescope spies faint distant galaxy NGC 1803 in the painter's easel. There's an image of it. Well done, Hubble. We've also linked to the Wikipedia article about it, so perhaps read about that, although there's not really a lot to read about it. It's just a distant, relatively small galaxy. And we've also linked to the Simbad page. If you want to view it on various different instruments, you can do it there. Here is the colorized magnetogram of the local yellow dwarf, which some of us refer to as the Sun. And not a lot of magnetic organization going on right now. Let's take a quick view here in the 131 angstroms view. This is a 48-hour video, folks, as we are out of here. So thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Certainly don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.